Obviously this year, in many of our members, the focus is shifting to mass vaccination campaigns, and that's a particular challenge, particularly in developing countries.
Some say compared to your counterparts, including the World Bank and AIIB, you're not doing enough in terms of such medical aid. So what exact role can we expect the AIIB to play?
We'll operate in a way very much in coordination with our multilateral peers like the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, obviously in coordination with the global vaccination organizations. But more broadly, we see that there's a need for a continuing major focus beyond the pandemic on upgrading health and social infrastructure. If populations are not healthy, the economies cannot function. That's one of the most obvious lessons of this period over the last year or so with the COVID-19.
So in that case, how will you reallocate and rebalance your resources and efforts to make sure that your new strategy will both pay off in the short term and long term?
I think as countries shift from the immediate pandemic response to thinking about both the immediate and the long-term economic recovery, which you're right to say that they need to have, then infrastructure will be a key focus in many of those places. And in a sense, the contribution that multilateral development banks can make through our investments is to demonstrate through the projects we invest in that there is both a short-term and a long-term benefit to the kind of infrastructure for tomorrow that we know our members will need. So we've invested, for example, in solar power in Egypt, in Kazakhstan and other places. We've invested in a number of our members to support telecommunications infrastructure, broadband in Oman, fiber optic connectivity in Cambodia. These investments help to ensure that countries have the systems that they need to respond effectively to crises, to communicate with their people, to enable businesses to function well. And I think what you see increasingly is that the application of technology to traditional infrastructure also helps to get much better value, much better use out of that infrastructure.
As you're going to leverage more international capital, you're going to attract more private investors and commercial banks, which we think are not on the common ground with MDBs. So in that case, how will you ensure that they can get a considerable return?
So we have to find ways to attract private capital into our projects, but also to deploy our capital in a way that can support private sector development. And multilaterals bring a number of features that help to crowd in more private sector money to projects. You can see from a range of AIIB projects the way in which we've already taken steps in projects which help to bring private capital in through equity investments in green funds, for example, that will help to mobilize much more private capital into clean energy, for example, in the coming years.